If you're applying for an Australian partner visa, the most important thing that you need to prove is the genuine relationship in terms of the evidence you need to provide. And we get many clients who come to us and say they've provided the evidence, but is that enough? And we've had many consultations with this with clients in the past, and most of the time you need to demonstrate as much evidence as you can to make a strong application. And this is usually where we find gaps when it comes to either the relationship statement and the evidence that needs to back up whatever you're claiming in your relationship statement. So in today's video, I'm going to show you exactly how to prove that you are in a genuine relationship. My name is Abby from Migration Centre of Australia. So let's talk about the history of the relationship along with the 4 pillars that you need to cover to demonstrate you meet the criteria. Firstly, you must be in an ongoing and genuine committed relationship to each other. The department officer that looks at your paperwork should really understand this, but only being able to look at the paperwork. If they want to do further checks, they can call people. We've heard as far as the department officers in another country going to the town or city where the applicant is from and asking the locals if they know about that relationship. So if the department can go into that much detail to verify a relationship, whether it's true, genuine, and ongoing, and from a social aspect, whether that community knows about it, depending on where you're from and what claims you've made in your relationship statement, it needs to be coherent in the paperwork so they don't have to go through and conduct all these checks. It's our job as consultants, or your job as visa applicants, to make sure that enough evidence is being provided so the officer is convinced. So what does the Department of Home Affairs look at? They want to see that you're in a committed relationship, that you live together and you're living your life as a couple, and that your relationship isn't just for the visa purposes. And how do they measure this? This is measured through the 4 pillars of the relationship. First one is nature of the household. Second one is the financial aspect of your relationship. The third one is the social aspect of your relationship. And the fourth one is the nature of commitment to each other. If you understand these 4 pillars, it gets much easier for you to structure, firstly, your application, and secondly, you know exactly what you need to cover to help the officer understand your relationship. So the first aspect is the financial evidence. Now this can vary from person to person, and depending on the type of relationship you're in, it could be you both earn, you both divide bills equally, you transfer each other, or you have a shared account. You maybe use another app to track all of your expenses. It could be that one person takes care of all the bills, or it's not really tracked. And any of those scenarios are fine. It doesn't matter who spends what, as long as you're able to clearly explain that this person takes care of the expenses in this scenario, and this person takes care of the expenses for this. And it could be one person is earning, and they take care of all the expenses while the other's not earning at all. And every relationship is different, and we just need to provide evidence of that. We've had couples go as far as demonstrating that if they're in a genuine relationship, but they divide the bills equally. For example, in one scenario we had where the man eats more, therefore he contributes towards 2/3 of the grocery bill, and the woman contributes towards 1/3 of the grocery bill. And they're dividing it, but that's also fine. It can still be demonstrated that it's a genuine relationship. But you also need to consider that if you're dividing the bills that equally, that it is still a genuine relationship. You're not trying to fake a relationship and not putting your financial evidences together. Okay, so when it came to that specific evidence, we had to still try and ensure that the department officer would understand why they do that. And that's just the understanding they have between each other as part of that relationship. In terms of recommendations, we always recommend having a joint account together where you contribute towards all your bills. What this helps strengthen is that when you live your life together, you can show all the things that you spend on from that shared account. It could be that you still spend from your individual accounts for each other or as part of the relationship, but try and use that main account, because you can continue to attach that statement while the application is processing to provide further and further evidence. So by the time the officers actually look at it, they can see how you're spending every single month and that it is a genuine relationship. So that can include groceries, rent, car expenses, any other bills going out, shared social responsibilities or activities. So all of that comes in there. Other good financial evidence is having a lease together. So having both your names, and bills coming to that address with both of your names can also be helpful, although not necessarily required, but a lease agreement or a mortgage agreement is really helpful. Having both your names in your insurances, having each other included as partners if you have private health insurance. You can go as far as adding each other to your wills, and that will further demonstrate not only from a financial perspective, but also from an ongoing and commitment perspective towards your future, which is the fourth category that we're going to talk about. If you don't have a shared account together, you can show that how you transfer money to each other or track your expenses, divide the bills or manage your financials as a couple. What this helps the department show is, yes, that we might have our finances structured in a different way, but we still manage and track everything in terms of expenses. The second category is nature of the household. This is about your living arrangements together and how you live life on a day-to-day basis. So here we're going to focus on who gets the groceries, who does the house cleaning, who does the cooking, whatever it is that you are responsible for in your relationship in terms of the daily tasks and duties required, who carries them out. It could be that one person does 90% of the tasks and duties, whereas the other person does the 10% because one person works and the other one doesn't. It could be that you divide it 50-50. It could be that it's divided 70-30. It really does not matter as long as you can explain exactly what happens in that relationship and how you divide the work as a couple. We recently had a case where the sponsor got into a big accident and wasn't able to work, where the partner, the visa applicant, was a homemaker and she took care of the home duties and also the child they had together. Now, as her role has changed because the partner is unable to work, although he's getting covered by the government and they're relying on a lot of their savings, we can demonstrate how the duties have changed in that household because the sponsor got into an accident. They're not able to carry out as many duties while they recover. Now, if you're living apart due to any reason, it could be, for example, work, as long as you can justify why you're living apart, how you still communicate together, and then demonstrate how those household duties are still managed. Does one person still pay the bills and help the other partner? And that can still be concluded as a genuine relationship as long as there are specific reasons for being apart. The third is the social aspect of your relationship. Now, we've had cases in the past where the sponsor does not want to tell their parents that they're sponsoring someone, because this can be seen as by the family of the sponsor that, the visa applicant is using the sponsor to their advantage and that it's not a genuine relationship. And because of those concerns, some sponsors are very hesitant to tell their family until a bit later on. So we had a case where the sponsor did not tell her parents and was not able to include her partner in her lease agreement because where she was leasing was from a family friend and he had connections to her family and parents, so she could not disclose that to the landlord that she was renting for. So we had to prepare really strong submissions around this and demonstrate that it was a genuine relationship. The family did not know, but his family did know, which is the visa applicant, did know about the relationship, and we provided evidence of all of that. We provided evidence that the sponsor's siblings knew of the relationship, the sponsor's friends knew of the relationship, and then eventually over time, we were able to attach more and more evidence about the relationship, and then they ended up telling the girl's parents, which was the sponsor's parents, and then we later attached even more evidence as part of the permanent application, and then it was all granted. Right, but it's about structuring the application in a way, even though those circumstances might be difficult, you have to explain everything so the officer can understand the circumstances. Now, as part of the social criteria, we've covered a lot of this in that example, but you need to attach evidence of any social gatherings you go to, so make sure you have pictures available. Then attach any outings you have with each other's family, friends, If you're traveling together, that can also be included in here. And what that really shows is that your community, your people all know about the relationship, and it's not a fake relationship when it's publicly known, because there's a lot of social pressure that's attached when it comes to that. Of course, as part of this, you also need to attach 2 Form 888s, which is a statement from a friend or family member that's an Australian permanent resident, citizen, or eligible New Zealand citizen, talking about your relationship and how they believe it's genuine and ongoing. Now, if you're lodging your application and you hold a bridging visa, you must make sure that you also attach 2 statutory declarations. The 4th category is the nature of commitment towards each other. Now, the relationship statement and what you write in here, we generally consider to be the main piece of evidence, because it's all about how you're saying that you want to live together and what your plans are for the future. If you do have evidence that you can back it up with, that's even more helpful. So for example, some people have savings that they're looking to buy a car or house with. Other people are planning to travel together, that they've booked tickets to travel maybe in the next 6 months or 12 months. Other people may have a will together for each other that, you know, if something happens to either the sponsor or the visa applicant, that where those belongings will go or how will the finances be structured. Not necessary to have all of these things, but it would be great to have at least one of these things to attach as part of that evidence. There's been many cases where there's no evidence and it's just about how that relationship is and what they're saying, what their commitment is like towards each other. So the main aspect is the first 3 that I talked about in terms of the pillars. And this one is all about how you feel and where you see that relationship going. In one of the relationships that we recently worked on, we had to demonstrate how the partner was planning to propose without letting the visa applicant know that they were getting proposed to in the future. So there can be different evidences, and we communicate both with the sponsor and the visa applicant and figure out a way to structure that. In this section of the relationship statement, for nature of ongoing commitment, you can also talk about some of the experiences you've had together, any hardships you've overcome, maybe you've lived apart and why you had to live apart, but how you managed to continue to commit to each other and build that relationship. It's a really important point to discuss in this section, because it shows that it's a genuine relationship and you're able to live together even as you see the hard time. So to summarize, you should not solely rely on photos or screenshots or chats that you've attached. You should really focus on your relationship statement. And in that relationship statement, you should cover all 4 categories and also cover the history of that relationship and how it started. Make sure there are no inconsistencies and that you're honest and truthful. No matter what your circumstances are in that relationship, it can generally be justified. 4th, make sure you have strong Form 888s or statutory declarations if required to attach with your application, because this is a good way to prove that people around you that are Australian permanent residents, citizens, or eligible New Zealand citizens really believe it is a genuine relationship. And don't upload too many documents without structure. So you can have all your photos relating to the social section in one Word document, convert it to PDF and attach it. Then a separate one for ongoing commitment, separate one for financials if necessary, and a separate one for household if necessary. If you have a question or are concerned about how to demonstrate this, please head to our website to book a consultation to get advice on the evidence that you are attaching and what you're planning to do with it. Just having this advice alone can ensure that you have a strong application, even if you're planning to submit it yourself.